We now have confirmation that conservative commentator and Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk has been pronounced dead after being shot while speaking today at a Utah event. Now, this was an act of political violence, and of course, we are seeing everyone across the political spectrum condemn this action. But I think the conservative response, already blaming Democrats and saying that they need to condemn this action, is outrageous. Now, I don't want to politicize this death, but I think that it is very important that we recognize it is not incumbent upon Democrats who have spoke out constantly, always, actively against political violence and have worked for the very gun reform that would have prevented this tragedy today. And it is a tragedy, no matter how you feel about Charlie Kirk and his vile political opinions. This is a tragedy. I disagree with him on everything, but that doesn't mean anyone should support political violence, but we don't. And we shouldn't be asked to condemn it because we are not the ones perpetrating it. Elected Democrats are not the ones joking about political violence. When it was Paul Pelosi being attacked in his home, the current president of the United States and his son, Don Jr., were making posts mocking him after suffering gruesome injuries. The current president of the United States made jokes about the former president of the United States being hogtied in the back of a truck. When you speak about your political enemies like they are enemies of the state, as Donald Trump has, when you say that there is an enemy from within, when you dehumanize to the point that you think your political opposition has no dignity and value as human beings, this is the outcome that we see. It is a tragedy, it is disgusting, but political violence and its condemnation should not be incumbent upon Democrats. Democrats should not be forced to condemn this because when have we not? Now, some people might disagree with that. They might think that I am immediately politicizing what has happened today and that this video is disgraceful, but I disagree. Because I think in this moment, we need to be very clear about how we stop actions like this, prevent them from happening in the future, because it's not just political violence. It's not. In Denver right now, there is an ongoing school shooting. I will have more updates on that as soon as I possibly can, but this is the state that we live in America. And we have become so numb. Unless there is a shooting that exceeds several people, 10, 20 sometimes, losing their lives, the mainstream media gives it little to no coverage. Sometimes we, in the independent media, give it little to no coverage. But people are dying across America every single day. It is not a tragedy that we should just look over if those deaths aren't concentrated at a single time in a single place. If those deaths are not of high-profile individuals. We should care about the epidemic of gun violence because it is claiming lives. It's claiming the lives of children every single day. It is disgusting that we have gotten to this place and the rhetoric that has been used to distract us from this very issue. Again, I don't want to politicize this video. I think it was a tragedy what happened today. But I do also think it is important to note that Laura Loomer tweeted that Charlie Kirk was at this event today talking about and likely demonizing, as he has, transgender Americans. We have seen this narrative pushed on the right as of late that transgender Americans are the cause of mass shootings, that transgender Americans, the small minority that they are, their mere existence needs to be stopped is what the right pushes. They want to strip transgender Americans of their Second Amendment right, but of course they think that any minor gun control to prevent mass shootings, to prevent people from losing their lives every day, oh, that's an infringement that we can't make happen. That would be a complete crisis. That conservatives say, well, we need our guns to rise up against a tyrannical government. What if they send cops out on the streets? Well, Donald Trump has done that now, and I see conservatives praising him. What if there is a ring of wealthy elites going after our children? Remember that conspiracy, Pizzagate? Hillary and Bill Clinton? The tragedy that was? Someone's mind so riddled by MAGA world conspiracies that they bust into a pizza parlor? Well, now, the President of the United States is actively covering up his relationship with the most famous pedophile in recent American history, and conservatives say nothing. Not only do they say nothing, they say, media be quiet, that's not Donald Trump's signature. That is their defense. And if you think that I have failed in my reporting today because I am straying from the topic of Charlie Kirk, I understand why you might be upset, but I think that it is important right now to address why this happens, to talk about what leads to political violence, what leads to gun violence, the root cause. Why Americans are too distracted, purposefully, mind you, to focus and to achieve solving these issues. It is because we have a billionaire class that wants us distracted from the literal warfare that is happening across our country, because these weapons used to slaughter, they are weapons of war that should not be on our streets. And now we are seeing them carried around by Donald Trump's personal police force to intimidate us, to scare us from engaging in democracy. That is what is happening right now. Why? It's because the billionaires that Donald Trump serves, that he invites to the White House to parade around in his newly renovated, ugly rose garden, the people getting your tax dollars in the largest wealth transfer in history, they want us focused on anything else. They fund political media operations to fundamentally distract and to divide. We saw James Tallarico launch his Senate candidacy yesterday, talking about the divide in our country that is not left and right, but that is top and bottom. And I think it is time that we come together on an issue that I know is bipartisan and make some reform happen. I have friends who are gun owners, and what I can tell you is that the way that they speak about their guns, and I've been to a buddy's, I wouldn't call it necessarily a ranch, maybe a plot of land, practice shooting. I have seen few people talk with as much sophistication, care, and understanding that that weapon is not a toy than a gun owner. It is a lie that everyone who owns a gun in America will fight tooth and nail to stop any progress on meaningful gun reform to keep people safe. That is a lie that you are told to, one, not only not engage with those people, but two, for the billionaires and the gun lobby to think that you can't win, that you can't make meaningful change, that it's just not going to happen, that people are too dug in. But what I can tell you, those very gun owners care deeply about keeping you safe around those weapons. And there are many who would trade them in and have to keep people safe in their own home, in their own community, on the streets, across the country. This is an issue that isn't political. And the fact that we will now be talking about political violence, that we will now be talking about gun control, is important. It is an important discussion to have. And it should not be one suffocated by someone like J.D. Vance, who doesn't care about any community, mind you. He doesn't care about his own. He exploited them for his own political gain. To say that if you want to say that thoughts and prayers are not enough, because it's not. Thoughts and prayers aren't enough. Do you know how you know thoughts and prayers aren't enough? And prayer is important. Community is important. But do you know how you know it's not enough? Because what Donald Trump is about to do is send cops out on the streets. He will say this is a reason why we need to go into Chicago, why we need to go into Baltimore. And if Donald Trump really thought that thoughts and prayers were enough, if MAGA thought thoughts and prayers were enough, they wouldn't be saying, all right, let's go bust down the doors of liberals and say that you've been spilling bile, criticizing the dear leader that put us all in jeopardy. That's not true. That's not true. It is the right that has fundamentally worked to other and to dehumanize their political opponents. So if they really thought that thoughts and prayers were the answer, they wouldn't be ready to send troops out on the street, which is what Donald Trump will likely do. But I think it is important that we recognize that as important as community is, and if you are a person who holds your religion very dear, as important as prayer is to you, We have to do more to not have these conversations stifled by political actors who seek to undermine real change to protect a status quo and to protect an elite that doesn't care about us, that fundamentally does not care about us, whether you live or whether you die. That's the truth. And I think that is an important conversation to have. I think that's a conversation worth having. And again, I'll say it again. I know I might have strayed from the topic of this video, and I know some might say that I haven't given adequate care or response to the loss of life. But I think that the immediate put the mic in your face, do you condemn political violence? Do you condemn what happened today? Is an unfair thing to ask of people who nonstop advocate for this to stop in our country, who are constantly fighting for reform on an epidemic of gun violence. It's not a problem. It's not an issue. It is an epidemic. I think it is unfair to put the onus on us when Donald Trump is so pathetic that he won't get his Republican Congress that falls in line to defend his cover-up of Epstein to work to keep people safe. If Trump wanted to, tomorrow he could pass sweeping gun reform through Congress. Call up those same spineless little cowards and tell them he's going to primary them if they don't, and it would happen. But he cares nada. He cares not at all. No one